That conference room on the third floor felt colder than the machine shop in January. I'm sitting there with a black binder thick as a phone book, 15 years of my life documented in processes, vendor contacts, and safety protocols that kept Allied Precision Manufacturing humming like a well-tuned engine. Set it down on that polished table, squared the edges out of habit. 20 years in the Navy drills certain things into you. Rachel Hartley's across from me in her Navy blazer, fake smile locked in place. Next to her sits Kyle Brennan, 33 years old with a Wharton MBA and about as much shop floor experience as my neighbor's golden retriever. Kid looks like he stepped out of a recruiting brochure. Pressed shirt, perfect hair, the kind of confidence that comes from never having your hands dirty. Rachel picks up my binder like it's a takeout menu, flips through pages while staring out at the parking lot where my F-150 sits next to Kyle's BMW. 15 years of 60-hour weeks, and she's giving it the same attention she'd give junk mail. I sit there watching this dance. Military teaches you to read a room before anyone opens their mouth. The way Rachel won't make eye contact, how Kyle keeps checking his phone, they've already made their decision. This meeting's just theater. Greg, you've done solid work here, Rachel finally says, closing the binder with a thud that echoes off the glass walls. But we're moving in a new direction with operations. Here it comes. We've decided to promote Kyle to Director of Operations. Kyle Brennan, son of our biggest investor, Thomas Brennan, who bought 30% of Allied 6 months ago when old man Peterson needed cash to retire. I've watched Kyle walk through this plant exactly 4 times since Daddy's money got him a seat at the table. Each time he stayed up on the catwalk like he was afraid the actual work might rub off on him. Kyle leans forward with that prep school grin. Greg, I'm really excited about working with you. Your institutional knowledge will be incredibly valuable as we implement some innovative operational improvements. Institutional knowledge. Innovative operational improvements. That's MBA speak for, we're about to fix things that aren't broken. I nod once. Don't argue, don't raise my voice. 15 years managing blue-collar workers after 2 decades in the Navy taught me something important. In rooms like this, a man who speaks his mind gets labeled as difficult. Better to stay quiet and watch them tie their own noose. Understood, I say. Clean, professional, nothing they can write up later. But I'm thinking about something else. Christmas season for manufacturing. Next 6 weeks when every automotive and aerospace contract hits crunch time simultaneously. When you need people who know the difference between 6061 and 7075 aluminum, who understand why you can't just flip a switch and automate 20 years of tribal knowledge. Kyle starts talking about synergy and digital transformation, all those buzzwords they teach in business school when you've never actually made anything with your hands. Rachel nods along like he's quoting the Bible. I stand up, shake hands all around, walk out with the same steady pace I used leaving the captain's office after a mission briefing. But this time, something's different. This time, I'm not planning to follow orders blindly. Thing is, this whole situation started way before that conference room. Back in Toledo, where I grew up, Dad worked Ford Assembly until they shut it down in '92. Mom cleaned office buildings downtown for $12 an hour. When I hit 18, had 2 choices, community college or military. Navy seemed like the better bet. See the world, learn a trade, maybe figure out what to do with my life. Spent 20 years on destroyers and shore duty. Supply chain logistics, crisis management, keeping complex systems running when everything's trying to break down at once. Navy teaches you systems thinking. How every piece connects to every other piece. How one small failure cascades into major disaster if you don't catch it early. Mustered out in 2008 when the economy was tanking and manufacturing was about the only industry hiring veterans with management experience. Allied made precision aerospace components, engine mounts, hydraulic fittings, landing gear parts. Stuff where getting it wrong means planes fall out of the sky. Started as night shift supervisor making $38,000 a year. Could have stayed in my office pushing paperwork, but that's not how you earn respect on a shop floor. You don't manage what you don't understand, so I learned every machine, every process, every supplier relationship from the ground up. Maria used to joke that I loved that plant more than I loved her. Maybe she wasn't entirely wrong. Plant gave me purpose after the military, something to build instead of just maintain. Maria understood that, even when it meant missed dinners and weekend emergency calls. She passed 3 years ago. Cancer took her fast, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Left me with Tommy finishing his sophomore year at Ohio State and Sarah wrapping up high school. Plant became even more important after that. Routine kept me functioning during those dark months when everything else felt meaningless. Worked my way up to operations manager over 15 years. Turned around 3 different production lines, corporate was ready to shut down. Cut material waste by 32%. Haven't had a serious safety incident in over 8 years. Built relationships with suppliers from Michigan to Arizona. The kind where they'll move heaven and earth when you need something yesterday. All that experience, all those relationships, all that knowledge, it was sitting in the binder Rachel barely glanced at before handing my job to a kid whose biggest manufacturing achievement was probably his senior thesis on lean production theory. But here's what Kyle and Rachel didn't grasp. Manufacturing isn't a spreadsheet you optimize with algorithms. It's hundreds of small decisions every day, relationships built over years, knowing which vendor will pull strings when everything's falling apart. That knowledge lived in my head, not in any manual. And starting that morning, I decided to keep it there. Walking to my truck after that meeting, I passed the main production floor where second shift was setting up for the evening run. Jimmy Kowalski waved from the aluminum cutting station. Been running that machine for 12 years, knows its quirks better than anyone. Maria Santos was checking quality specs on the titanium line. 20-year veteran who could spot defects that would slip past most inspectors. These people trusted me, looked to me when things went sideways. For 15 years, I'd been the guy who fixed problems, answered questions, made sure everyone got home safe at the end of their shift. Now they'd be reporting to Kyle Brennan, who probably couldn't tell the difference between a torque wrench and a tire iron. Should have felt angry. Instead, I felt something else. Curiosity, maybe. About what would happen when someone who'd never run a production line tried to manage one during the busiest season of the year. Guess I was about to find out. Next morning, I show up at 7 sharp, same as always. Grab coffee from the break room where the guys are already talking about the new boss. Danny Martinez, our best machinist, shakes his head while stirring sugar into his cup. Heard Brennan's kid is taking over operations. That true, Greg? That's the word. Guy even been down on the floor yet? Few times. Stays up on the catwalk mostly. Danny snorts, catwalk cowboy. Those are always fun. I don't say much else. News travels fast in a plant this size. And I don't need to fan any flames. But I can see the wheels turning in Danny's head. Same as the other veterans. They've seen management changes before. They know what usually comes next. Around 9, my phone buzzes. Text from Kyle. Greg, could you stop by my office when you get a chance? Thanks! Exclamation point. Kid's trying so hard to be friendly it hurts. His office used to be Peterson's, corner spot with windows overlooking the main floor. Kyle's already made changes. Replaced Peterson's old steel desk with some modern glass thing. Got a whiteboard covered in flowcharts and buzzwords. Looks like a consulting firm, not a manufacturing plant. Greg, thanks for coming by. Kyle jumps up like I'm a customer instead of a subordinate. Please have a seat. Coffee? I'm good. He settles behind his glass desk with a laptop and a stack of business books. I can see the titles. Lean Manufacturing Revolution, Digital Transformation in Industrial Settings. All theory, no practice. So I wanted to touch base about the transition. I know this might feel awkward, but I really value your experience here. Okay, I've been reviewing the operation metrics, and honestly, I'm impressed. Efficiency ratings, safety record, customer satisfaction, Allied's performing really well. We do our job, right? Absolutely. But I think there's room for improvement. Opportunities to optimize processes, maybe implement some new technologies. I lean back in my chair. What kind of technologies? Kyle's eyes light up. Well, I've been researching automated quality control systems. Machine learning algorithms that can detect defects faster than human inspectors. Could cut labor costs by 15% while improving accuracy. Maria Santos has been running quality control for 20 years. Can spot a stress fracture on titanium from across the room. Catches problems automated systems miss all the time. But I don't mention that. Sounds interesting, I say. I'd love to get your thoughts on implementation. Maybe we could walk through the QC process together sometime this week. Sure, just let me know when. Kyle smiles like we're best friends now. Great. I really think we can take Allied to the next level, Greg. With your operational knowledge and my strategic background, we make a good team. Kid thinks this is some kind of partnership instead of him being handed my job because Daddy wrote a check. I stand up. Anything else? Actually, yes. I'm putting together a presentation for the board next month about operational improvements. Would you mind pulling together some data on current processes? Production times, cost breakdowns, that sort of thing? I can do that. Perfect. Really appreciate it, Greg. Walking back to my office, I think about Maria. Not my wife, Maria Santos in quality control. 20 years of catching problems before they become disasters. Kyle wants to replace her with an algorithm because some consultant told him it would save money. Thing about consultants, they never have to live with the consequences of their recommendations. My phone rings around 11. Pete Kowalski from Midwest Alloys, one of our key aluminum suppliers. Greg, got a situation here. That batch of 6,061 sheets you ordered for the Henderson contract? Lab results came back with higher than normal copper content. Still within spec, but barely. You want us to ship it or hold for a cleaner batch? Pete's asking because he knows our tolerance is better than our own purchasing department. Henderson Aerospace has strict requirements. They'd rather wait an extra day than deal with material that's borderline acceptable. Hold it, I say. Ship the cleaner batch. Henderson's picky about metallurgy. That's what I figured. Clean batch goes out tomorrow morning, you'll have it Thursday. Appreciate it, Pete. No problem. How's the new boss working out? Word really does travel fast. Early days, yeah, I heard. Brennan's kid, right? Hope he knows what he's getting into. I hang up thinking about that conversation. Pete and I have that kind of relationship because I've earned it over 8 years of working together. When he calls with a problem, I give him straight answers. When I need something fast, he moves mountains. Kyle doesn't have that relationship with anyone. Doesn't even know Pete exists. Around noon, Kyle shows up at my office again. This time he looks less confident. Greg, I just got off the phone with our aluminum supplier. Something about a quality issue? Midwest Alloys. Copper content was high on a batch of 6,061. Pete held it back, shipping cleaner material Thursday. Pete Kowalski, quality manager at Midwest. He's our main contact there. Kyle frowns. Is this going to delay the Henderson delivery? Nope. Thursday shipment gives us plenty of time for Friday delivery. Good. But in the future, could you loop me in on supplier issues? I'd like to stay informed. Sure thing. Kyle leaves, but I can see him processing this. First week on the job, and he's already learning there are dozens of relationships and decisions happening every day that never cross his desk. That afternoon, the main conveyor system starts acting up. Nothing major, just running slower than normal, causing a backup on the finishing line. Jimmy Kowalski comes to find me around 2:30. Greg, conveyor's being cranky again. Think it's the humidity sensor. Want me to call service? I know that conveyor like my own truck. Humidity sensor's been touchy for months. Usually just needs recalibration. Service call costs $800 for something Jimmy can fix in 20 minutes. Give it a shot first. Sensor's probably just dirty. That's what I figured. Just wanted to check. Jimmy heads back to the floor. 15 minutes later, conveyor's running smooth again. Crisis avoided, money saved, production back on schedule. But Kyle doesn't know any of this happened. He's in his office reading about lean manufacturing, while the actual manufacturing keeps running because people like Jimmy know their jobs. Around 4, Sarah calls. She's at school, probably between classes. Dad, can you pick me up from volleyball practice tonight? Mom's car is making that noise again. Sarah's been calling Maria's old Camry mom's car for 3 years now. Can't bring myself to correct her. What time? 6:30. Thanks, Dad. I look at my schedule. Nothing critical after 5. For the first time in years, I can actually leave at quitting time and pick up my daughter from practice. Maybe even grab dinner together. Strange how losing a promotion might actually improve my work-life balance. Kyle stops by again around 5:15 just as I'm shutting down my computer. Heading out already? Picking up my daughter. Oh, right, family time. That's important. He says it like he's never heard the concept before. Hey, before you go, I'm thinking about scheduling a meeting with all our key suppliers. Get everyone together, discuss our new direction. Think that would be valuable? I grab my jacket from the back of my chair. Might be. Could you put together a contact list? Key people at each company? I could do that. Great. Have a good evening, Greg. Walking to my truck, I'm thinking about that supplier meeting Kyle wants to set up. All those relationships I've built over 15 years. Pete at Midwest Alloys, Chen at Titanium Technologies, Rodriguez at Precision Fasteners. Kyle thinks he can just call a meeting and suddenly everyone's his best friend. It doesn't work that way. Trust takes time to build. Takes even less time to lose. But Kyle's about to learn that the hard way. 2 weeks later, Kyle's supplier meeting happens. Conference room's packed with people I've known for years. Pete from Midwest Alloys, Chen from Titanium Technologies, Maria Rodriguez from Precision Fasteners. 8 suppliers total, representing maybe 60% of our material costs. Kyle starts with a PowerPoint presentation about Allied's new strategic direction. Lots of slides about efficiency gains and cost optimization. The suppliers sit there politely, but I can see their faces. These are practical people who deal with metal and deadlines, not business theory. Our goal is to streamline vendor relationships, Kyle says, clicking to a slide full of charts. Reduce administrative overhead while improving quality metrics. Pete raises his hand. What exactly does that mean for day-to-day operations? Kyle looks confident. Well, we're implementing new procurement protocols. Standardized ordering systems, automated quality approvals, centralized communication through our new vendor portal. Chen shifts in his seat. Will we still have direct contact with operations staff? Sometimes we need to talk through technical specs in real time. The portal should handle most technical communications. For urgent issues, you can contact my office directly. I watch the suppliers exchange glances. These people are used to calling me or my team when they need quick answers about tolerances, delivery schedules, or specification changes. Now Kyle wants them to go through a computer system and wait for corporate approval. After the meeting, Pete pulls me aside in the parking lot. Greg, what's really going on here? This kid seems nice enough, but does he understand how manufacturing actually works? He's learning. That vendor portal thing, you know how many times we need to adjust specs on the fly? Sometimes I call you 3 times a day when we're running a complex job. I know. Pete looks frustrated. Look, Allied's been our biggest customer for 8 years. We want to make this work. But if every decision has to go through some computer system, give it time, Pete. Kyle's still figuring things out. Yeah, okay, but Greg, if things get complicated, you'll still be there to help sort them out, right? I meet his eyes. Pete, Kyle's the director now. You should probably work with him on any issues. Pete stares at me for a moment, then nods slowly. Copy that. That same week, Kyle decides to implement his automated quality control system. Brings in a team of consultants from Detroit to install cameras and sensors on the titanium line. Cost Allied $80,000 for equipment that's supposed to replace Maria Santos. Maria's been running quality control since before Kyle was in high school. Catches defects that would slip past most inspectors. Knows the difference between normal variations and actual problems. But Kyle's convinced his computer system is better. First day the new system goes live, it flags 60% of production as defective. Entire line shuts down while the consultants try to figure out why their algorithm is rejecting perfectly good parts. Kyle calls me into his office, looking stressed for the first time since he started. Greg, we've got a situation with the QC system. It's showing massive failure rates, but Maria says the parts look fine. What's Maria's assessment? She says maybe 5% are actually problematic. The rest are within normal tolerances. Sounds like Maria knows what she's talking about. Kyle runs his hands through his hair, but the system cost $80,000. It's supposed to be more accurate than human inspection. System's only as good as its programming. The consultants say they need another week to recalibrate the algorithms. What does that mean for production? We either shut down the titanium line for a week, or we override the system and go back to manual inspection. I wait for him to ask the obvious question. He doesn't. Kyle, what do you want to do? I don't know. What would you do? First time he's directly asked for my advice. I think about Maria sitting at home because Kyle put her on administrative leave when the new system went online. Think about the Henderson contract that needs titanium parts by Friday. I'd call Maria back in. Let her run inspection manually while the consultants fix their system. Kyle nods gratefully. That makes sense. Can you call her? You should call her. You're the director. He looks uncomfortable. Right, of course. 3 days later, Maria's back running quality control by hand while $80,000 worth of cameras and sensors sit idle. Kyle's barely spoken to her since she returned. Embarrassed, I figure. Maria just does her job, catches the problems the fancy system missed, keeps production moving. But word spreads fast in a plant. Everyone knows Kyle's big automation project failed. Everyone knows we went back to doing things the old way. Everyone's starting to wonder what other brilliant ideas he might have. Around this time, Sarah starts asking questions about work. We're having dinner at the kitchen table. First time we've eaten together on a weeknight in months. Dad, you seem different lately. Different how? I don't know. More relaxed, I guess. You're not getting those emergency calls every night. She's right. Phone used to ring constantly. Supplier problems, equipment failures, customer complaints. Everything that couldn't wait until morning. Now those calls go to Kyle first. New boss likes to handle things himself. Is that good or bad? I think about it. Too early to tell. Mom used to worry about you working so much. Sarah doesn't talk about Maria often. When she does, I listen carefully. Your mom understood the job. She said you cared too much sometimes. About work, I mean. Maybe she was right. Sarah pushes food around her plate. Do you think you'll stay at Allied? Why do you ask? Some of my friends' dads have changed jobs lately. Economy's weird, Mom says. She pauses. Mom used to say. I reach across and squeeze her hand. I'm not going anywhere, kiddo. But even as I say it, I'm thinking about Pete's frustrated expression in the parking lot, about Maria's embarrassment over the failed QC system, about Kyle's growing desperation as one initiative after another crashes into reality. Thing is, I'm not sabotaging anything. I show up, do my job, follow Kyle's directives exactly. When he asks for advice, I give it straight. When he doesn't ask, I don't volunteer. But silence can be its own kind of action. Every problem I don't anticipate, every crisis I don't prevent, every relationship I don't nurture, it all adds up. Kyle's learning that managing manufacturing isn't like managing a business case study. Real machines break down. Real people have bad days. Real customers don't care about your PowerPoint slides when their orders are late. And real expertise can't be bought with an MBA and daddy's money. It has to be earned, one crisis at a time, one relationship at a time, one midnight emergency call at a time. Kyle's getting his education now. Question is whether Allied can survive the learning curve. The breaking point comes 6 weeks before Christmas. Aerotech Industries, our biggest customer, calls an emergency meeting about their F-35 component contract. $43 million worth of business, representing about 35% of Allied's annual revenue. Kyle's in full panic mode when Joe Martinez, Aerotech's quality director, walks into our conference room with 2 engineers and a procurement manager. They've found stress fractures in a batch of engine mounts we delivered last month. Not catastrophic failures, but enough to trigger a complete supplier review. Kyle tries to run the meeting like a business school case study. PowerPoint slides about root cause analysis and corrective action plans. All very professional, all completely missing what Joe actually wants to hear. Joe cuts through the presentation after 15 minutes. Kyle, I appreciate the charts, but what I need is simple. How are you preventing this from happening again? Kyle launches into a speech about enhanced quality protocols and improved process controls. Sounds good on paper, but you can see Joe's not buying it. He's been in aerospace manufacturing for 20 years. He knows the difference between talk and action. Where's Greg Lawson? Joe asks suddenly. I've worked with him for 5 years. He knows our requirements better than anyone. Kyle glances back at me. I'm sitting in the corner taking notes, staying quiet like a good soldier. Greg's here. Greg, you want to address the quality concerns? I look up from my notepad. Kyle's the director now. I'm sure he's got it covered. Joe frowns, looks back and forth between us like he's trying to figure out some kind of puzzle. The silence stretches until Kyle starts talking again, but the damage is done. Joe's smart enough to read between the lines. Meeting ends with Aerotech putting Allied on 90-day probation. Another quality issue in the next 3 months, and they start looking for alternative suppliers. For a company Allied's size, losing Aerotech would be a death sentence. That afternoon, Rachel calls me into her office. She looks tired, older than she did 6 months ago. Stress is wearing on her. Greg, I need to ask you something directly. Are you deliberately withholding support from Kyle? I meet her eyes. I follow every directive Kyle gives me. Show up on time, do my job, answer questions when asked. That's not what I mean, and you know it. What exactly are you asking, Rachel? She leans forward. I'm asking if you're letting Kyle fail because you're angry about the promotion. Kyle's the director. His success or failure is on him. Greg, you and I both know there's institutional knowledge that doesn't exist in any manual. Things you've learned over 15 years that could help Kyle succeed. All the important stuff is documented. Kyle has access to the same information I do. What about relationships? Vendor contacts, customer preferences, all those little details that make operations run smooth? I think about Pete at Midwest Alloys, frustrated with Kyle's vendor portal. About Maria Santos running quality control while $80,000 of cameras sit unused. About Joe Martinez asking where I was during the most important customer meeting of the year. Kyle wants to modernize operations. Use new systems, new processes. Maybe that's better than relying on old relationships. Rachel stares at me for a long moment. I could write you up for lack of cooperation. You could try, but cooperation requires specific requests. Kyle hasn't asked me to train him on vendor relationships or customer management. He's focused on big picture strategy. So if he asked for help, you'd provide it? I do whatever my supervisor directs me to do. She dismisses me without another word, but I can see her thinking, starting to understand the corner she's painted herself into. 2 weeks later, my phone rings at home. Sunday evening, I'm helping Sarah with college applications when the caller ID shows Titan Manufacturing. Chad Morrison, their HR director. Mr. Lawson, hope I'm not interrupting dinner. We'd like to discuss an opportunity with you. Titan's Allied's biggest competitor, located about 40 miles east in Canton. Similar size operation, similar customer base. I agree to meet for coffee Tuesday morning at a diner halfway between the plants. Morrison's there with Lisa Chen, Titan's operations vice president. Professional, direct, no wasted time. Greg, we've been following your career for several years. Our operations director is retiring next spring. We need someone with experience managing complex aerospace contracts. What kind of position? Director of operations. Full authority over production planning, quality systems, vendor management. 58% salary increase from your current position. Full benefits package plus stock options. I keep my expression neutral, but internally I'm calculating. 58% more money would cover Tommy's remaining college costs and Sarah's entire education. Maybe even let me think about retirement before I'm 70. That's interesting. But I've got 15 years invested at Allied. Lisa leans forward. Greg, we've heard from customers that you're the guy who really runs operations there. Joe Martinez at Aerotech specifically mentioned your name when we asked about potential hires. Joe mentioned me, said you understand their requirements better than anyone in the industry. Also said he's concerned about recent changes at Allied. Translation: Aerotech's already thinking about moving their business. Question is whether they follow me to Titan or find some other supplier. I'd need to think about it, of course, but Greg, opportunities like this don't stay open forever. We'd like an answer by the end of January. Driving home, I think about loyalty. About 15 years of 60-hour weeks and emergency calls and missed family dinners. About watching Kyle stumble through situations I could handle in my sleep. About Maria's old Camry sitting in the garage because I can't bring myself to sell it. But Sarah needs a car for college next year. That evening, I call Tommy at Ohio State. Dad, what's up? You never call on Sundays. Just checking in. How are classes? Good. Expensive, but good. You okay? You sound different. Tommy, if I change jobs, would that affect your school situation? Are you thinking about changing jobs? Maybe. Just exploring options. Dad, whatever you need to do for yourself, don't worry about me. I can handle student loans if necessary. 20 years old and already more mature than half the executives I work with. Maria would be proud. Thanks, son. Just want to make sure I'm making smart decisions. You always do, Dad. After we hang up, I sit in Maria's old recliner and think about the path forward. Kyle's going to keep struggling. Rachel's going to keep pressuring me to bail him out. Aerotech's going to keep questioning Allied's capabilities. Meanwhile, Titan's offering me a chance to run operations the way I think they should be run. Build my own team, implement my own processes, maintain the relationships I've spent 15 years developing. For the first time since that conference room meeting, I'm not just reacting to what other people decide. I'm making my own choice about my own future. The next morning, I walk into Allied with a different mindset. Not angry, not bitter, just clear about what comes next. Kyle's about to learn the difference between managing a job and earning it. And I'm about to remember what it feels like to be valued for what I actually bring to the table. Sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back. It's walking away and letting them discover what they lost. Your move, Kyle.